in this area since 1980. As many of you know, I have placed a permanent conservation easement over 293 acres, which will ensure that my farm will continue to be farmed during my lifetime and during my children's and grandchildren's lifetime in perpetuity, in fact, by someone. I have no intention of ever selling the property. In addition to any income that the mining operation may generate, my end game is to have a large, sustainable irrigation pond that would match the irrigation needs of the 293 acres that I have placed in permanent green space. The DEQ of Virginia predicts that groundwater will run out and or become brackish and unusable for farming irrigation purposes in 10 years or so. I think the county is already aware of that because deep wells aren't sustainable for the county purposes as well, for that same reason. Since the 293 acres of green space can only be used for farming and never for development, then its only use as farmland would be greatly diminished without irrigation. By the way, my sand and gravel reserves are very small compared to the other permitted pits, very small. All my life's work in the farming business is tied up in my farm. The two amendments I have requested will enable me in future generations to continue to use my property as a sustainable farm for the community. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Sneed. We will go on with the public hearing, and if you wouldn't mind, you could just have a seat down front, and if board members have questions, they will get to them after the public hearing is closed. Okay, is there any other citizen who would like to speak regarding this public hearing?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Trish Parker. I live in the Port Royal district, about a mile from Mr. Sneed's farm. It disturbs me greatly to think the board might choose to ignore the advice of our planning commission in regards to this mine. As you know, the vote against these changes was 5-0. Let me say that again. Everyone on the Planning Commission was against the changes. If everyone on the Planning Commission says this is not a positive thing for the county, the assumption would be that it would not pass, right? And why isn't this issue coming up at the January meeting where it was originally scheduled? Could it be that this board feels that the newly elected board would not pass these changes? It sure does seem that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this public hearing?
Good evening, board.
Good evening.
My name is John Stoddard from the Port Royal District. I'm here tonight to lend my support for Mr. Sneed's request before the board. When the board approved Mr. Sneed's original request for the mine sand and gravel on Clark's Cut 2, I stood in favor of his request, knowing full well the obstacles he would face. The board at that time knew these obstacles as well, but saw the merits and benefits of the project and voted to approve the request. The expected lawsuits followed quite quickly. This board and Mr. Sneed had to accept and answer this challenge because of the benefits they saw in the project for Caroline County. Today, this board and Mr. Sneed have pursued the challenge through the legal system, costing tens of thousands of dollars and harsh criticism. I believe Mr. Sneed has honored his end of the bargain in this matter and has paid the legal fees and endured the criticism. He has compiled with the request of the board and worked within the letter of the law to gain what this board has requested and approved. Due to time and legal wranglings, Mr. Sneed has found a need to ask for the changes he seeks here tonight. These are not draconian changes he seeks. He is not asking for any favors, just a fair shake. I base my support for Mr. Sneed and his request on the following. Within a matter of a few months after approval, Mr. Sneed began planning a screening of trees to answer neighbors' concerns of visual intrusion and wildlife habitat impact. Mr. Sneed has worked with the county, state, and federal officials to answer the concerns raised by neighbors to make his project better. He has partnered with Tommy Welch, a local and well-respected businessman, in order to provide a better product and revenue for the taxpayers of Caroline. Mr. Sneed has established himself as one of the state's leading agribusinessmen, proving his business savvy and stewardship of the land. He and his wife, Ellen, have developed a business that draws thousands of visitors to Caroline County every year to buy Christmas trees, pumpkins, and a variety of the finest produce in the area. The Sneed's Farm is a showcase of good business practice, providing good, clean family fun and education for all ages. Mr. Sneed has put 293 acres of his land into conservation as easement, as he stated, that will protect and buffer his neighbors and our military men and women from the encroaching developments in perpetuity. Sneed's Farm is an established and integral part of Caroline County. It came this way because Mr. Sneed and his family have a deep and abiding respect for the land and its many uses. I trust you gentlemen will approve Mr. Sneed's request tonight. Both this board and Mr. Sneed have come a long way since your approval. If given the chance, I'm sure Mr. Sneed can again prove he is a man of his word, is a good steward of the land, and can create a business that is environmentally friendly and a good revenue producer for the citizens of Caroline County. Thank you very much. And on a personal note, I want to thank Mr. Taylor and Mr. Akors for your service to our county over all these years. I know you'll be greatly missed by a lot of people. And I know over the years, since we started together, I've learned a lot from both of you. And I look forward to dealing with you on other issues throughout the years to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this public hearing?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I speak for myself and my husband, Cheryl and Don C. We live in the Port Royal District, a quarter of a mile from Mr. Sneed's farm. Mr. Sneed previously fought for and was approved by you for this special exemption permit. You are aware that this proposing mining operation has never commenced. Now Mr. Sneed wants to amend the permit. Should he not have included all of his wants in his first request? This surely is unclear to us. Will he mine as you have approved or not? First, Mr. Sneed desires to change the requirement for a renewal to a year to 5 years as opposed to the original 1 year. That seems to be water under the bridge now, to return asking for the permit to be changed. Secondly, instead of going forward with the approved permit, Mr. Sneed wants to remove the requirement for road improvements at that site so that he can attempt another course of action. Has that plan of action been solidified with that adjacent mining operation? You gentlemen indeed have spent a great deal of time and energy studying and approving the original request. Must you continue to make decisions regarding more desired changes for the same permit? Were you not more than generous to approve the original request? The Planning Commission has heard these requests, deliberated, and unanimously decided against them. My husband and I do not approve of the amendments he is requesting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. C. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this public hearing? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this public hearing?
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Joe Parker. I reside at 19491 Tidewater Trail, Port Royal Voting District, which is less than a mile from the proposed mine. If you go back 15 years, Mr. Sneed had no intention of mining at that time. And we all know things change, conditions change, and that kind of thing. And everybody spoke up here about how it's been so nice that the land's been put in a conservation easement, which I also agree is a good thing. He was, remember, however, paid over $1 million from the government for those development rights. It wasn't like he's sacrificing. He also has permission to continue to farm, timber, and if you see fit, to mine. So he has his cake and can eat it too, which is good for him if it goes to that. But I'm here to, I was against the mine in the beginning for many, many reasons, and I have heard nothing here that eases my mind. In fact, originally, Mr. Sneed made it clear that this was a small project to be done by him and one partner, almost a do-it-yourself type project. That seems to have changed now, and we really have no idea who will be doing the work. The driveway access and egress is not set at all, and changing that condition would set a very dangerous precedent, in my opinion. That is a huge issue. Then there's the matter of the Planning Commission. They voted to deny the changes by a unanimous 5-0 vote. Why in the world would the Board of Supervisors vote to undermine the Planning Commission? The Planning Commission asked a lot of questions, got very few answers, and made the right decision. The renewal, if you decide to do that, if you decide to change that, I really urge you to do the 1-year thing at least first and see how it goes. If he's doing great and all the neighbors are hunky-dory, everything's wonderful, maybe you can change it to 2 years. But don't change it now. That would not be very smart. I urge you to confirm the unanimous vote. It is the right thing to do at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this public hearing? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this public hearing? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this public hearing? Seeing no one with the desire to speak, I will now close the public hearing. Board members have questions regarding the public hearing? Mr. Black?
Yeah, Mr. Fincham, I just want to go over a couple of things with you. I just want to make sure I'm just kind of doing a timeline in my head, and I just want to make sure, I know it's been stated tonight, but I want to make sure. This came to the Planning Commission originally in June, is that correct?
Get my right permit here.
Yes, sir. I believe the application was actually filed in about April.
Okay.
Going through the TRC process,
Right. Okay.
it got to the Planning Commission in June.
And from what I read in the notes, they deferred it till July. Is that, it was deferred a month, or came back to them in July?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then in July, they made a decision based on the conditions, which were like, I guess, a bunch of conditions, correct? And they voted 5-0 unanimously to deny, is that correct?
Yes, sir. They voted to deny the requested changes.
And then at that point, the applicant filed for a delay until January, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So the
I'm
applicant-
not sure exactly which board meeting that request came to the board, but the request was to defer it until January.
Okay, so it was originally scheduled for sometime, one of our meetings in January, and then at that point, our last meeting, it was changed yet again for the December meeting, is that correct?
I believe that request came to the board at your first meeting in November.
Okay. The vote that the Planning Commission took, the unanimous 5-0 vote that the Planning Commission took, the comments, like when you see the comments from different agencies,
Yes,
like
sir.
I see, for an example, a comment that's dated in April from the Sheriff's Office.
Yes, sir.
And the Sheriff's Office reports, it's signed by Sheriff Lip, that says, I have concerns, basically it's concerns, I'm just paraphrasing here, I have concerns over traffic issues.
Yes, sir. I believe the concerns, as well as VDOT and staff, related to the modification, to the removal of the left turn lane.
Okay.
And the modification of the right turn or decel lane.
Right, Okay.
Yes.
I guess my next question is, I don't see any, unless I'm missing it, maybe I missed something big, but I don't see any other comments from the Sheriff's Department or VDOT beyond April. So in other
That
words...
is correct.
So these have not gone back to the Sheriff's Office with, the turning lanes, there's nothing has gone back, nothing has been changed from the Sheriff's Office. This doesn't have to go back to the Sheriff's Office for comments with changing conditions at all. In other words, we don't get like, hey, these conditions have changed, we want the Sheriff's Office to consider this, or we want VDOT to consider this?
In this case, no, we did not, because the modification, the language that we have suggested that you consider, I think addressed the concerns of both of those agencies in their original application. The concern was the elimination of the left turn lane. That is not proposed anymore. There's a left turn lane either at the existing entrance to aggregate industries, and if they could not secure that access, then they are still required to install the left turn lane as was originally conditioned with the original SC.
But the bottom line is, I still don't have something from Sheriff's Office saying, hey, we are okay with this now.
That's true. That's
We
correct.
still don't have something with VDOT, because I'm seeing something in VDOT on dated April 18th. Cover sheet indicates that the AM peak hourly volume is 22 vehicles per hour. Yet the total generated traffic by this site is shown as 30 vehicles per day. So there's a discrepancy right there that VDOT was asking to be fixed. I don't see that is rectified anywhere. And I'm just kind of curious, that may be a clerical error, I understand that. But I'm not seeing anything past, all this stuff to me is dated sometime, and I know there are other agencies involved, but those are the two that stuck out to me. Those are all dated, the last date I see from any agency is in April.
That's correct. And you will also note in VDOT staff report that there is a condition or a comment where they actually recommend that we consider utilizing the existing entrance to aggregate industries for access to this property. And this suggested condition, as modified by staff, I believe addresses that issue. But no, we do not have any update from them that says, yes, you've addressed that concern. Although it's evident to me that we have addressed that comment. But you're right, we don't have an updated report from VDOT.
The other question I have, and I guess it was something in an email that we got earlier, and I don't know if maybe our county attorney could answer the question. And just kind of for a curiosity, do other boards of supervisors have any statutes in place where in a lame duck period on a board of supervisors, land use issues are not addressed? Can you talk to that? Because I saw a statement about that, and I just wanted to clarify if that's fact or fiction.
Yeah, that may occur. We don't in Caroline County have any, and I'm not sure that would be legal, frankly, since you serve until your office is over.
Okay.
Mr. Underwood.
Mr. Fincham, are you finished, Mr. Black?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. He's good, okay. You mentioned that both concerns had been addressed regarding the ingress egress and using the second.
I think I think staff has tried to address those concerns with, I guess it would be version 3 of the conditions, where it notes here, staff recommends the modifications as follows.
Right.
I think we attempted to address those concerns, but no, we did not go back to those agencies to make sure that our language did in fact do that.
Right, I understand that. Do you, Mr. Fincham, have any additional concerns regarding the request here before us?
I think we have attempted to draft or to make modifications to the language for the board to consider. I think if you as a board have additional concerns, then we will attempt to, again, modify or craft language to address those issues.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Mr. Akers?
Yeah, Mr. Fincher, condition number 11, has that been authorized? Has that been finalized as to being able to happen?
No, sir.
It has not?
No, sir.
Okay.
See-
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's good. Go ahead. I'll answer your question.
Okay. But if they're not able to get permission from the adjacent mining operation to use their entrance, then what does that put the...
Their entrance and the improvements would be the same as those were required with the original special exception permit.
I saw where Mr. Thompson had tried to incorporate into the motion, and he may have been able to have done that, but the motion failed anyway, to change it whereas when the warrants required the turning lane into his facility, then that would take place. Now, who determines when the warrants determine that the need is there? VDOT?
A warrant analysis is a VDOT requirement.
Okay. So it's not Mr. Sneed that decides that as to, hey, now I think I want to put in a turning lane. The highway department will then, VDOT will then tell him, you are required to put the turning lane in because the traffic count and the warrant's required.
I think there would have to be an additional step
Okay.
in the conditions.
Okay.
That there's some review during that time period that would actually allow the traffic impacts to be monitored along the way. Some language that VDOT could require or the applicant would provide whatever traffic study VDOT would need in order to perform that warrant analysis. I think the requirement for the left turn lane from the public health and safety perspective, notwithstanding VDOT's warrant requirements for a turn lane, I think the board has consistently, where you have arterials, required that left turn lane to ensure the through flow of traffic along those arterials. And I think it would be a lot more cumbersome to try to draft a amendment to a condition that had a warrant analysis in there.
Okay. That's fine.
Good. Mr. Seeley?
I guess my only question was, has Aggregate Industries agreed to that entrance?
No, sir. Not at this point in time, not that I'm aware of, which is why we had suggested the caveat that it revert back to the original entrance if it could not be secured.
Thank you.
Mr. Seeley, did you get the letter from Mr. Lemming?
We did, we all did.
Okay.
It just arrived, and I can't say that I've had a chance to read it.
Okay, you have a question? Other questions, Mr. Seeley?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, I just have a couple of questions, I guess, questions and comments. A renewal, again, for the sake of clarification, at the end of a year, the board would then vote as to whether or not Mr. Sneed would keep his operation or keep his special exception.
Yes, sir. He basically would have to start that process
All over again.
about 6 to 8 months after he started.
Is there
In order to meet the
any,
year.
okay, is there any other operation that has that condition? Any other approved operation in the county with that condition?
There are not currently any that I am aware of that are active right now that are subject to a renewal. I seem to recall in the past that there was a renewal for 1 or 2 permits. Again, that's history and some years ago.
But
There was-
presently, in the ones we have approved over the last several years, we've not required that.
I don't recall any, no, sir.
Okay, a review. If Mr. Sneed is given what he's asking for, and this board decides to go with a review, if Mr. Sneed does not meet the conditions of his special exception, can we not shut him down?
You can invoke on your own motion, for failure to comply with conditions, the board can consider revocation of a special exception permit, and in fact, you have done that previously.
So basically, in my understanding of this, we can do the same thing for this board or whoever the board is. If the review comes, having said that, I would move that we approve the special exception requested by Mr. Sneed along with the changes. If I can get a second.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we approve the special exception requested by Mr. Seeley with the changes. All in favor, let it be known by saying.
Which changes? The applicant's version?
Yeah, the
or
applicant's version.
Or
Staff's version, 10 and 11.
with the comments noted by staff?
With the comments noted by staff.
Can I
Is there a
ask
question?
for? Yeah, I mean, just to overindulge me, if you would, please. Could you read me what you have for 10 and 11 to make sure I'm on the same page?
Yes, sir.
I think we've already said we got 4 versions, so we just want to make sure we have the right version before we vote on it.
On page 4, Mr. Thomas?
I got electronic, so page 4 might be different, but go right ahead.
Page
Okay.
4, does it match conditions than what I've got?
My page 4,
Page 1 says
condition
staff
number
report.
10 proposed, to ensure compliance with this permit, the Board of Supervisors may direct the Planning Commission to review the special exception permit anytime after site plan approval, including required reviews every 5 years after site plan approval. Notwithstanding the foregoing, in the event the applicant is not deemed or found to be in compliance, the applicant, for all purposes, will be afforded the opportunity within a reasonable time period to cure any noncompliance issues in accordance with the zoning ordinance of Caroline County. My suggestion was that you strike that last sentence.
Any new operator. Right, because well, I am saying it is exclusively a property rights issue. If the owner maintains it, the owner has certain rights. If the owner sells it, it's another story, and that any new operator wouldn't be applicable or applicable depending upon where you come from.
Now, for simplicity purposes, my suggestion would be that you just
Strike that.
specify a review period.
Right.
1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years,
Okay.
keep it simple. because that then speaks to Mr. Taylor or Mr. Seeley's concern about the revocation of the permit.
And I think Mr. Taylor, once we have this, can clarify all that in his motion, if he so desires. And that, we know what page we're on, so everybody have that?
Staff comments on condition number 11 basically kept condition 11 as in the current permit with the first sentences. The applicant shall install the road improvements as shown on the general development plan and as required or recommended by the Virginia Department of Transportation. In addition, the applicant shall install a left turn lane eastbound from Route 17 at the approved entrance. That's the current condition.
You struck in addition.
The additional language would state, in lieu of constructing the road improvements identified above, including the left turn lane, the applicant may utilize the existing commercial entrance for Mid-Atlantic Materials, tax map 4-A-1A, to access and develop the site, subject to the approval of VDOT and the property owner of tax map 4-A-1A. Thereafter, for so long as the applicant utilizes access to the subject property from the existing entrance, then the foregoing road improvements will not be required. That was an attempt, if something happened and the written agreement was temporary or voided, at that point in time, the applicant would have to come back and install the originally permitted improvements.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman?
Okay, I was just asking Mr. Sneed, do you understand, Mr. Sneed, do you understand what he just read? And is that what you were intention, is that your intention as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Can I ask Mr. Finch? Again,
Okay.
just before we vote. Mr. Finch, again, I guess I go back to my original question about the commonality of language in terms of a review versus a renewal versus anything else, to make sure that that we have some standard in terms of language and time that are consistent throughout all mining operations. I certainly wouldn't want to do one thing here and then we are doing something somewhere else. Again, I'm trying to get to a standard in terms of the renewal and the review process. Can we include that in the special exception to where we have a standard, so we're all talking apples to apples and oranges to oranges?
But Mr. Chairman,
Okay, go ahead.
could I, just to make sure, because by definition, special exceptions are each one unto itself
That's
is
true.
unique.
Yeah,
You're
that's
right.
right.
And
So there, yeah.
in a case with, especially when you talk about Cheney, they may have had millions of dollars to say, yeah, go right ahead, I'll review it every month.
You're right.
But
His is a
in
much
this
smaller
case,
operation.
it may not be a good thing to have always a standard.
You're right. Thanks, Mr.
I don't want to be right.
Taylor.
I just want to be happy.
Okay, all right. We have heard the motion. For clarity, one last time, I would like for you to read the motion, just for clarity, so that everybody understands, so every board member understands what they're voting on.
I haven't written the
He just-
motion down,
Yeah?
but
Okay, could we take a 5-minute break? We can take a 5-minute break, and you write the motion, and we'll come back in 5 minutes. Okay?
okay?
We will reconvene the December 8th Board of Supervisors meeting, and I would ask that Mr. Fincham would read the motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I believe that this is the motion that I heard. To ensure compliance with this permit, the Board of Supervisors may direct the Planning Commission to review this special exception permit at any time after site plan approval. However, a review shall be required every 5 years after site plan approval. And the condition 11 would be the current language. The applicant shall install the road improvements as shown on the general development plan and as required or recommended by the Virginia Department of Transportation. In addition, the applicant shall install a left turn lane eastbound from Route 17 at the approved entrance. In lieu of constructing the road improvements identified above, including the left turn lane, the applicant may utilize the existing commercial entrance for Mid-Atlantic Materials, Tax Map 4-A-1A, to access and develop the site, subject to the approval of VDOT and the property owner of Tax Map 4-A-1A. Thereafter, for so long as the applicant utilizes access to the subject property from the existing entrance, then the foregoing road improvement shall not be required.
Okay, my motion then is as was read. Yes, sir.
No, I'm just,
No.
You left a part of it. Let me show you. Left that out to down there. You're going to strike the last sentence.
I heard them say that, I mean, I heard that
I'll read
that
it.
wasn't.
But Mr. Sneed, no, we have to go by what?
Okay.
Mr. Sneed's concern is that, and we were discussing this during the break, his request was notwithstanding the foregoing, in the event the applicant is not deemed or found to be in compliance, the applicant for all purposes shall be afforded the opportunity within a reasonable time period to cure any noncompliance issues in accordance with the zoning ordinance of Caroline County.
Okay, in simple terms, meaning?
There was a lot of discussion. We heard the comments about keeping it consistent, keeping it simple. The board needs to tell me whether they want to keep that in there. I'm not sure that we heard you wanted to keep that.
Okay. You're right. Basically, what I heard the board say was that special exceptions are on their own merit. They're different. And so they may not necessarily be consistent because each one is based on its own merit. A large company like Cheney is very different from a small company like Mr. Sneed. So how does the board?
That's what I said.
That's
why we agree.
okay.
So it's not necessary that the people say.
Right.
The first version is what? What?
They're individual. Therefore, we're looking at it as an individual entity based on what you're reading. Each one holds its own merit.
So based on that, you wanted the abbreviated version that I read to you initially?
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct, because that's what.
Right.
Okay, I think that was our understanding, but
Okay. So would you just read that, Bill?
to ensure compliance with this permit, the Board of Supervisors may direct the Planning Commission to review the special exception permit at any time after the site plan approval. However, a review shall be required every 5 years after site plan approval.
That's what we want. Okay, we have heard the motion as it was read. That is my motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we will approve the motion as read. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Mr. Thomas, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Black?
Nay.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye.
Mr. Akers?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley?
Nay.
And I vote aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I would vote for the record, I would like to change my vote to aye, please.
You may change your vote if you like.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion passes 5-1. Okay. Let's go to special exception 04-2015 Moss Neck Holdings, LLC owner applicant.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next public hearing tonight is SPEX 04-2015, Moss Neck Holdings LLC, owner and applicant. They are requesting a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 4, Section 5.5 of the Caroline County zoning ordinance on a portion of tax map 4-A-10 consisting of approximately 5.6 acres. The property is located on Moss Neck Manor Road on the southwest quadrant of Tidewater Trail and Burma Road in the Port Royal voting district. The proposed use is a campground/camping area. The 2030 comprehensive plan identifies this area as being within a resource-sensitive overlay district and designated as agricultural preservation with a density of 1 dwelling unit per 25 acres. Again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have the staff report in your packet. A brief background for the board, I believe, is in order. The subject property has been the subject of a notice of violation for a campground and has been going through that process for a period of time. Staff received a complaint relative to the use of the property as a campground and investigated that complaint. Based upon some discussions with the county attorney's office, it was deemed that the property had been developed / was being used as a campground, which requires a special exception permit under the county zoning ordinance. No such permit had been issued. Since it requires an SC, the board had not considered a special exception application, and a notice of violation was issued. The applicant subsequently appealed the NOV to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which upheld staff's determination relative to the NOV for the campground, and that determination or decision has been appealed to the Caroline County Circuit Court. Pursuant to that, the applicant has submitted an application for a campground in accordance with the ordinance requirements. I believe you have some pictures in your staff report which show the improvements that consist of a concrete pad with 5 water, sewer, and electric hookups that would allow 5 RVs to be to park on the facilities and to use those facilities. There was some discussion previously about the health department permit. The health department previously did issue a permit for this property for the 5 non-residential RV hookups. There's some question about whether that was the appropriate permit, and the health department has come back and said that that facility needs to be re-permitted as a campground under their regulations. Even though, based upon the facilities that are there, it is a campground by their own definition. So they're now saying that that permit has to be upgraded. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this application and did forward this to the board with a recommendation of approval by a vote of 4-1. And with that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have.
Board members have questions before the opening of the public hearing? If not, I will open the public hearing for special exception 04-2015 Moss Neck Holdings LLC applicant. If the applicant is here, I will allow you to go first, and then I will allow anyone else who would like to speak to that public hearing after this. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Richard Stewart, and I represent the applicant. We are here seeking a special exception for a campground, but I can assure you that my client does not want to operate a campground. I know that doesn't make any sense. He's got 3 RVs, 2 RVs there now.